everyone. It's the Tetracast. We're back. It's the second week of January. I'm here at the start this time. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me today, you got the usual crew. We have Josh Torres.
Hi, hello. It's getting cold, apparently in a lot of parts of the country.
We have Adam Vitale.
Yep, I'm in Boise and it's been snowing all week.
James Glizio.
It's been snowing in my parents' place in Idlewild. That's Southern California. They're in the mountains.
And
okay.
Chow Min Woo.
It's minus 37 Celsius here.
Minus, are you in the Yukon or what?
What's that in English?
Hey, look, half the world uses the metric system, okay? It's just you Americans.
Is it half? No, wait, it has to be more than half for using Celsius. I thought only US used Fahrenheit.
Okay, so translating for Chow here for us Yanks, that is negative 34.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, okay. It's not too bad. You're fine.
Okay.
Just be sure to not go out of the house, and if you do, wear like 3 layers, maybe 4.
I haven't went outside for like a week of it.
I wish I could be like you. But yeah, it's January 12th, the day we're recording this. It's the 13th. 13th as we're recording this. Second full week of the year. I think many of us are coming off our first or second full week of work back in the new year. So back to the grind, back to the normal Tetracast, back to the normal things to talk about. Not a lot of huge hitters this week, but we do have a few things that have come out and a couple news stories from the last 7 days. Some of the things we are aware of, a few surprises. We're probably going to start out with one game that we called out right at the end of the last Tetracast, an early January release, and this is for the new Momodora game, Momodora Moonlit Farewell. So I remember us talking about this last week. I forget exactly how this aligns with the Reverie Under the Moonlight and those other ones, but I believe James, you were planning to put some time into Momodora this week.
Yeah, I beat it.
All right, so tee us up. What is Momodora? What did you think of it? And just give us a lowdown.
So Momodora is a Metroidvania type series from Studio Bomb Service. Most people have probably only played the previous, most recent one, Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight, which came out in 2016. It's available on pretty much every platform at this point. And it's really good. Up until Moonlit Farewell, I would say that Reverie Under the Moonlight was my favorite one. Like Momodora 1 and 2 were very much like itch.io style, indie games. So good, but also very, very simple. They're like free to play on like their websites. And then like Momodora 3 was like a little bit more in depth, but also still like a very, very small game. I think I beat that one in like an hour, and it's like $1 or $2 on Steam. But yeah, Reverie Under the Moonlight was a really good game. It felt like a higher budget Metroidvania as far as like indie Metroidvanias go, like with the art, the presentation, the combat, all those sorts of things. Anyone that's played Reverie Under the Moonlight, you probably liked it. Most people I know that played it had a good time with it. So a lot of folks have been waiting for a follow-up because originally, the developer was going to make a 3D style Momodora game. Unfortunately, some people were very upset about that and gave the developer quite a bit of hassle, which ended up leading to them canceling that project, making a different Metroidvania that's not Momodora called Minoria, which some people like, some people didn't like. I had a good time with it, but I know that that's not exactly the most popular opinion. And finally, like late last year, they announced Momodora 5 Moonlit Farewell, and that released 2 days ago.
Now, remind me, I think like Momodora 1 and 2 are like really simple pixel games. I think you can get them on Steam.
I don't know if you can get them on Steam, but you can like get them for free on the developer's website.
Anyways, what I was going to say is, I know Momodora 3, which I think is like 10, 11, 12 years old now. This is actually like a follow-up to Momodora 3, because Reverie Under the Moonlight was like a prequel, and then like Minoria was something else. So I remember when I was like looking into this game, the developer basically had to sort of say like this game is actually a follow-up, not to Reverie Under the Moonlight. It's obviously not related to Minoria, so it's actually a follow-up to an older game. Yeah, Momodora 3. Yeah, Momodora 3 came out in 2014, so not quite 10 years old.
Almost though.
Right.
Yeah. And it came out before the main developer Ardine made their actual like a studio.
Right.
Because now they're a bomb service, but back when they released Momodora 3, I think they were the only person developing it. So, but yeah. So if you played Reverie Under the Moonlight, you probably already have a pretty good idea of what Moonlit Farewell is like. There's a few differences, and one thing that Momodora as a series has always been good at is that they make sure that each entry in the series has its own kind of unique flavor to it, like its own unique like elements. This one, well, in Reverie Under the Moonlight, one of those things was you could transform into a cat, kind of like how in like I guess some Castlevania games let you transform to like move and whatnot. This, you have access to these like sigil cards, which you can equip as like accessories that like fundamentally change some of your moveset. Like you might, you have like a heal that's based off of your like magic, and you can equip a sigil that makes it so that when you heal, you can overheal, or like it'll have like an AoE like damage around you that kind of like purifies enemies. You can get a sigil that makes it so that your arrows shoot faster, or maybe they have an additional effect like they're on fire, they explode, or maybe you fire 3 at once. You can also like make it so that you have a higher chance of your main like melee attacks, like special like luck based attack procs more often, or once you near the end of the game, you eventually get this kind of like devil trigger-esque state that's very, very like short-lived. Like you can only do like 7 or 8 attacks before it like goes out, like disappears, and it's based off your stamina meter. You can also get a sigil that makes it so that when you're in that devil trigger type state, every single one of your attacks will be that like luck-based extra damage attack for your melee. Level design's really, really good. I'd say that of all the Momodoras I played, and really most of the Metroidvanias I've played, this has probably one of the better like world designs I've seen. The game looks amazing. Like all you really need to do is like look at the Steam page, and you'll see that it just has like incredible pixel art. One thing the developer is known for is a certain design trope for bosses, and you can definitely see that has stayed the same.
You mean the Booba boss?
The gigantic tits.
yeah. But like, like the game looks incredible. The soundtrack's really good. Like most of the bosses are good. There's a few that I think are a bit of a letdown, but it doesn't really get in the way of the fact that I think this is easily the best Momodora game. And if you're either a newcomer or already a fan of the series, definitely pick it up. It's only on PC right now, but it runs on anything. Like I think when I booted it up on my desktop, I didn't have the frame rate capped at the time, and at the title screen, I was getting over 1,000 FPS. So you won't have any trouble running it. And obviously, I played most of it on my Steam Deck, and like on the OLED deck, you can get like locked 90 FPS with like 6 hours of battery life. So obviously pretty much any PC will run it. It can even be a toaster, like just make sure it has like 2 slots for toast or something. But hopefully it gets ported to like Switch and other platforms, because I know that Reverie Under the Moonlight did. And actually I played Reverie Under the Moonlight on like Xbox One back in the day. So hopefully for folks that played it on console, Moonlit Farewell can actually get ported. And oh man, I didn't even realize, like looking at the Steam page for Reverie Under the Moonlight, I didn't realize it's been like 8 years since that game.
Yep.
But I guess that makes sense when they released Minoria and then like COVID hit, so it kind of had an impact on things. But yeah, Momodora, Moonlit Farewell, really, really good. Really glad that Bomb Service managed to get it out there, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah,
How long?
it's really neat that like it came out and it seems to be doing very like the reception to it has been doing pretty well for people who played it. But I think it's just like it's kind of a weird thing now of like, okay, what does the future hold for me? I clearly like the developer wants to do a shift, something different, but once again, it is back to like the topic that we talked about a few weeks back of like, where do you go from here? You can't just keep on making the same 2D pixel Metroidvania. If
Well,
it, like,
they do
I mean,
change things up
I'm,
every
I'm not,
time.
I'm not saying that like the mechanics are like unchanged, but like clearly this developer wanted to make a 3D game and really wanted to shake things up.
Yeah.
You know,
I
uh,
will say, without going into spoilers, I've seen some people that assume because it has like it has farewell in the title that it's going to be the last Momodora. That's not the case. Like, without going into specifics, the game very much leaves a few avenues open for what a follow-up might be, like where the story can go from here. So there will probably be a Momodora 6 in like 3 or 4 years. I'm assuming 3 or 4 years because COVID fucked things up with this one. But I'm sure that'll happen, whether or not it's like an actual Momodora 6 or if it's a spin-off. Personally, I would love to see their take on like a 3D style game. And I feel like in a post Risk of Rain 2 world specifically, I think people might be a bit more willing to give the developer like less grief about it. They shouldn't have given them grief about it in the first place, but it's like one of those things where it's like you had a similar sort of sentiment when Risk of Rain 2 was in development, which obviously was around the same time like the Momodora thing happened. And very clearly, Risk of Rain 2 was a success in terms of transitioning that style of game to 3D. So I think hopefully if Bomb Service decided they wanted to go with a 3D style game this time, they would have less pushback. So I'd like to see something like that. But no matter what, I mean, this is good. Obviously, they've been doing fine with the games they've been making. So I'm sure like this will do well enough to like justify like down the road another one of these style of games, which is fine. Like, I mean, Team Ladybug is a similar deal where how many Metroidvanias have they made at this point? And they're like releasing another one like in April, I think. So
You
I'm kind
mentioned
of
one thing there that I wasn't expecting. I kind of assumed that the games were like story independent from each other. Maybe like same mythos, but I assumed you could. Can you kind of jump in anywhere? But you mentioned this
yes.
game like,
You can
but you
jump
also
in
mentioned that
anywhere.
this game has like a tether for a future entry in the story, so they're like
Yeah.
loosely connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, that jives with what I expected then.
Yep.
And how long did it take you to complete?
7 to 8 hours, and that was a completionist run. So I mean, for like most Metroidvanias, I'd say that's about the average play time, unless it's like a super long one. Uh, I know
Hollow
that Hollow Knight. Also, apparently that Prince of Persia game that's coming out next week, which is supposed to be really good. I believe it is also like 20 to 25 hours, so that's a long one.
Yeah. No, but thank you for going over Momodora Moonlit Farewell with us today. And yeah, it's available on Steam for the moment, and we'll of course discuss it if it gets announced for other platforms later in the year.
Yep.
The next game that we have earmarked now to talk about is something that we were expecting in January and just released a couple days ago at the time of recording, and that is a console demo for Granblue Fantasy Relink. So while the game will be coming out on PC, the demo is only available on PlayStation. And I do know that a few of us here were interested in at least trying it, despite that it wasn't on PC. But Josh, I think you're the one at this time has put some time into the demo.
I put the demo too.
Oh,
okay.
okay. So Josh and Chow. So
Yeah, so there's the Granblue Relink stream this week. The main big thing is what we expected. They just basically said, "Hey, the demo for this that we announced a month ago is coming tomorrow." They also laid out some of the future plans for the game. So like we know in April the game's getting an update with 2 new playable characters. And also like they also have a March update that they announced. So a month after release, that adds a new endgame boss fight, Lucilius. And so for people who played the original game, they're very familiar with that character. That's gonna be a big end game boss fight.
That boss was very hard in the mobile game when he first came out, and what right now they're gonna do is they're gonna put an even harder version of him again. I feel it's kind of cheap. It's like we're just recycling old bosses in the mobile game because he was the most popular one. But what can you do? I mean, he was a very fun fight. So
So that's kind of the main announcements from that stream. So I went to go check it out. This demo. This demo has 11 playable characters. You have the main crew like Gran, Catalina, Rackham, Io. They also have Charlotta, Gandagoza, Narmaya, Lancelot, Siegfried, Yoda, and Zeta. Um, so when you started the game, there's like three modes. There's like the tutorial mode, the story mode, and a quest mode. Tutorial just you play as both tutorial and story. You only play as Grand for them. Tutorial basically teaches you the controls. Story mode is like a very very tiny slice of like, hey, there's like some villagers under attack. You'll call this goblin attack. So you, Grand, and three other AI controlled party members. It's a very very linear small slice of like a story stage in that game, which is it's fine. It's like you have your standard like attack string with square, like a unique attack with triangle, and so forth. But the real meat of the demo is this quest mode where you can pick one of three like boss battles, and you can basically customize. You can either customize your party in single player, or you can take one character and play them online. The caveat to this is you need PlayStation Plus to play online, or at least have an account with PlayStation Plus on that same console system that you're on, because the PlayStation Plus benefits apply on that console. Then, so I don't have PlayStation Plus at all on anything on my console, so I couldn't play with my friends that had it. But it's fine. The game's coming out very soon, and we're all planning to play it on PC. So I didn't really mind. This is more just like testing out, characters, and so forth. I do know we've talked about how the gameplay is before on some various preview events. I think the one really neat thing about this demo that is kind of the big thing that really sells me on this game is like the boss encounters. So like in this demo, you have this the final boss that you get access to is like you have a level 10 party, and then the final boss is like this level 25 rock golem sort of thing. And then there you have several sub-objectives: defeated in 3 minutes, chain or do 3 link attacks, and don't try to make sure you don't basically be in a false state for more than 2 times. And then the more of those objectives you do, the higher grade and rank you get after the battle. And then and then presumably higher grades will mean better drops for you. So there's a lot of like it's actually like a challenging thing to like get a perfect S++ rank in this demo against this golem, because it's 15 levels higher level than you, and you're trying to think of like the most effective way to like dispatch it quickly while making sure you don't die in the process, because this thing will kill you very fast if like you start getting hit by its most powerful attacks. It can like basically like 2-shot you if you pretty much. And it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, like kind of experimenting with these characters. The character that I really like is Yoda. He's basically just a little dude with 2 huge like katanas, and his main gimmick is at the end of his attack string, you can press triangle at a certain thing, and he'll go into like this finisher state, and you can continue that combo and get to that finisher state like faster the more reps he does. And you can dodge offset this like in Bayonetta, where you can dodge and then continue the combo. And then this will every time you do this finisher state, and the final hit of that finisher combo hits, you'll gain something called like a shroud mark on Yoda, and he can stack up to 3 shroud marks. And if you fire off a skill, the more powerful it becomes, the more shroud marks you have. Or if he has also a support ability called Mirror Step, that at 3 shroud marks it'll apply it to the whole party, and this Mirror Step is like temporary invincibility, which will be obviously very very useful in helping out party survivability at certain points of that fight. The Rackham's really fun with his like a lot of people have experimented with Rackham and he has like this rifle that he can continue to fire, and it builds like a heat gauge on that rifle. And once it's like maxed out, you can fire off skills that do increased damage and properties based on that. And Adam put in the in the Discord like this party of like 4 Charlottas, because multiplayer games can pick multiple the same character. And Charlotta's a very people have been finding out that Charlotta's been very strong, a very strong character in this game based on that demo. And the really cute thing about this sounds like a lot of like I'm sure it's inside just the Granblue community, but it's like fun to see from an outsider perspective, where like they have emotes in this game. So since Charlotte's like a very like part of that small race, like I think they're called Harvins in the game.
Yeah, they're called Harvins. Yeah.
Yeah. So they there's like certain emotes, and like her sit emote is her putting out like a box and then standing on top of it, and that's her sit emote. And I'm like, that's awesome. You know, that
Yeah,
I know it's an ongoing joke. But,
And she just wants to get taller, and the whole joke is like she would go through like like insane lengths trying to get taller. It's like, wow, can't really make you taller. You're a Harvin.
yeah, so and then some people have been finding out like Catalina's a really great support character, even though she doesn't do a lot of damage. She does like she has a lot of like great buffs for the party. Defensive buffs can grant like instant invincibility to the whole party to keep their survivability up. And Maya has been being explored between her 2 different stances and how to properly play her, and all sorts of other stuff. So I've heard like it seems the community has been really receiving this positively, this demo, and really really happy with like after it being in development hell for so long, after passing the game from Platinum to in-house to Side Games Osaka and building up that studio to develop this game. It's like a lot of people are very like, I don't well, like how's it going to turn out? This thing has been in development for freaking ever. And it seems like the early impressions, like, yeah, this is a really solid game that they have on their hands. There's a lot of mechanics to like learn through, like even like this rock golem demo, like there's certain mechanics in there that you have to watch out for. Like at certain points of the fight it'll spawn cores, and when you defeat those cores you can actually like use them to like throw at the boss and do a lot of damage, or use them to like throw at the other core to instantly dispatch that, and so forth. And it's been, if the game is more really hones in on that feature, and it's looking like it is, then that this game has a lot of potential. They also give you a certain like basic like gear, like you have your a basic weapon, and also like the sigils to enhance attack, health, um, and so forth. And I'm sure there's gonna be more sigil effects down the road. But like people have been experimenting, like what's good. Like for some people, like the crit sigils are good if they do a lot of attacks rapidly, because that means more crit chances. While characters who do like really big like single hit attacks like Gandagoza, like stun sigils might be better for them, because they're once that big hit connects, that drives the stun bar way more forward than than it benefits them more than other certain characters. So people start to do like early experimenting and theory crafting over like the stat math of this game, and like what's kind of optimal. That's kind of that's the really fun part about like these sort of action RPG games, is kind of that early period of experimentation and seeing what really makes for an effective party composition. So I've also been watching certain YouTube videos of like S plus plus clears of like, okay, with this character it's like, okay, how did they do it? What was the general like strategy that they employed to getting that, and that's been really fun to see. How
It's
about you, Cho?
I
Oh, sorry.
I just want to comment that like I obviously haven't played either Granblue or this game. I haven't played the demo, but it is kind of neat that before like a meta coalesces, it's just kind of rule of cool. Like I'm going to try
Yeah,
this because it seems neat, or I'm going to play this character
exactly.
because I like the theme or the vibe. Versus, and depending on your community or who you play with, I'm sure everyone always has the more casual group that where people play as what they want. Versus like no, the most effective way to do it is this character with this gear with this sigil. But just allowing the rule of cool during the
Yeah,
demo period is always
exactly.
kind of a good window for these sorts of games.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
take it away, Chao.
Well, I think my opinion with the game is I don't really like the dodge in this. It
Mhm.
feels really floaty. It's like a bayonet dodge, if you get what I'm saying. That's like the only thing like gripes with it. It feels like you're flying every time you press that dodge button.
Oh, the dodge is it's very Bayonetta in that sense. Where if you spam dodge too much, it'll do like a flip, and then you're very vulnerable to disincentivize you to always like dodge. Like Bayonetta has a similar mechanic, and the iframes on that dodge are very deceptive because the iframes start as soon as like the startup of that dodge happens, not mid dodge when you're in the air. So, like the dodge is one of those mechanics that's like you can't really trust the animation to be the iframe window. It's a very specific iframe window at the start of it where you want to use it. So there's like an instant dodge mechanic in the game where like you properly dodge like a big like attack that had like an AoE like or a zone marker, right? And then like if you properly instant dodge that, it'll say invincibility of your character in the game.
Yeah, you see like a little blue aura around your character when you do
Yeah.
it perfectly.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's a mechanic that's deceptively like, oh, I can just spam this and expect nothing. It's there for like if you're really trying to get out of a zone fast and you're like in the middle of it, or but that like your dash is better for that, to be honest. Or if you're really like trying to master like certain iframe windows to dodge attacks because like DP like because of the 3-minute timer subjective. Like you're in a DPS race, right? And for melee characters, you want to always be in there. So if you don't have someone to give you like like party wide invincibility, or like you don't have like a self like mirror image, for example, you're really relying on like those perfect dodges as a way to mitigate damage and at the same time staying in the uh, in the zone to do your melee strings. So I think the dodge is like it's kind of weird at first, but it starts making more sense the more you utilize it as an emergency maneuver rather than the optimal way to maneuver around combat. It should be something that's like you don't really rely on that often. I think.
You think?
Yeah. So I think it'll take time to like kind of get used to that because it also relies on you being able to memorize boss patterns or anticipate like what's coming next and knowing like a boss's like DPS rotation.
Yeah, like
Cool.
I feel they learned something from the guy that lost and probably take some inspiration from that, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people don't really see like similar game comparisons, but I got like kind of like the same vibes with like the mechanics in here, where you see like the red circles and all that. Except there's a jump button this time. No jump button in Dragalia lost because it's a mobile.
Yeah, it's funny because like I kind of made a fucking shit post on social media a few weeks back when there's endgame boss footage coming out. I put the Dragalia boss Taoko song over it for the High Dragons, and like it kind of is similar to that in some aspect where like some of these dragon bosses that you're fighting against, some of their moves are almost one-to-one replicated from Dragalia Lost boss fights. Like the one that I was watching is like this kind of green dragon and had like a mixture of like high Midgard and high Jupiter like boss moves in it. It's like that's that's really something. That's really, we're not saying that the Dragalia Lost development team was on it. It was a totally separate team, but maybe
I
they're
mean, the staff can always share infos. I mean, it
yeah,
happens with
exactly.
like a lot of development. It's like, oh, here,
Yeah.
we found this works in our game. It's like, well, you could take that, and what didn't work, you don't take it.
Yeah. So I think for people who really still lament the shutdown of Dragalia Lost, I think there's something in it for them if they really like the boss encounter design in that game. I think that this definitely captures some of that era in a certain sense. So I think I didn't play this demo too heavily. Just like I've been tested out some characters and then watching some videos and talking to my friends about it because they've all been kind of gave it a try and learning things of what we like and don't like about this. But in general, I think like we're just all very excited to see, how the final release is. I think they've made a great like first impression here of giving us a taste of how this game operates, and it's not under a timed preview environment. So
I like,
it's
I'm just glad it's real. That's basically
Mhm.
it, right? And
Yeah.
I really love the universal Granblue. I just hate that it's a mobile game that's known to be extremely grindy, so it's hard to like get anyone to like even try it or see what the story is all about.
Yeah, and I think that's also great that like they got this development team has taken like enough stuff from the mobile game, but not like wholesale, right? Like you don't have to worry about weapon grids in this game, thank God. You only have to worry about a single weapon. It seems to make a linear weapon upgrade path, and like the thing that you're really customizing with your equipment is like the sigil, and then unlocking like a skill tree with your characters. It's not like you have to worry about like 5, 6 elemental grids that you're working towards. That it's insane grind. It's
And they don't
nothing like
even
that.
do the weapon grids for the fighting game anymore. I know some people were upset about that, but I'm glad. It's like you don't need something that convoluted for your
Yeah,
fighting game.
touched the revamped story mode in Rising, but yeah, I heard they're like, oh, they got rid of
Yeah, just
weapon
one
grids.
single
That's
weapon.
interesting.
No weapon
Yeah,
grids anymore. It's
that's
like
that's great.
you don't need that stupid system in there.
Yeah, so I think they're starting to like learn bit by bit. It's like, okay, we don't really need to copy everything that like our original game did, you know. So it's yeah, the Relink demo was really cool. You have a PlayStation, give it a shot. Something about PS4 and PS5. I hear the PS4 performance is kind of rough.
Oh, I haven't
Um,
tried on PS4. I got on
yeah,
PS5.
yeah, we
But
tried on
I have
PS5.
one question.
Yeah,
Is the story mode locked to single player only? That's the thing that people kind of worry about because they feel like, oh, you can only try, multiplayer with questing mode, right? But the story mode, is that single player? I wasn't too sure.
I think some of the single player stages, like the narrative stages, are like single player only. I think like things that have like big narrative story beats. I think those are single player only. But like I think the vast majority of like stages and availability will be can be played multiplayer. That's the messaging that they were saying, at least. So
Now,
obviously
if you're
I don't
playing
know.
a stage in single player, if you're playing a regular stage in single player, do you get like NPC allies or is it just single
Yeah,
player?
it's NPC allies. So
Okay.
even if you're questing, like you can set like NPC allies. There's
Okay.
nothing stopping you
So there's
from that.
always 4 participants
Yes,
in a
yeah,
quest. It's
so
just that whether they're computer controlled or not.
pretty much, and you can have it like variable, right? You can have like 2 people and then 2 AI, or 3 people, 1 AI, or like the so it's as long as you fill out 4, it doesn't matter what combination of how many people are controllable versus AI on that end.
Makes sense. Well, good to hear that everything seems promising on this so far, which we kind of expected because most of the preview events have been pretty promising. It's the fact that we were kind of worried about it was more just the fact that it was announced so early. Obviously, it's kind of the infamous picture coming. What was it? 2019 was the original picture that showed up.
I don't know if it was
We
even 20,
were,
maybe it was like 2017 or 2018. To be
I
honest.
think the
yeah.
rumors I heard is more like they have a fallout with Platinum Games and had to like redo a lot of things.
I
So
mean, I mean, it's kind of been stated in interview, not an English interview, but like in an interview with like a Chinese outlet, that like basically, they had a contract with Platinum. They took way too much time over what they wanted, and then they're like, okay, we'll just bring the internal, uh, the project in house, and like a new studio from it, and so we can work on under our own timeline. Uh, so it's nothing too crazy, It's like it's kind of that's how business goes. Sometimes, you take too long, and it's like, okay, well, you gotta call the contract off. Um, it's
I found an image that
yeah,
says coming 2018 Project Relink.
yep. So
So no, but
yeah,
obviously, game development is very, very difficult, and not many people can do it. And it seems like
mhm,
they've got something on their hands that's pretty promising.
yeah,
And the full release of that is when again?
And
January 31st, I think.
yeah.
it end
I
of the
think
month. It
pretty much end of
they
the month.
Yeah, they said it February 1st for the West, but I believe if you get the PS4 version digitally, you get it a couple days early. I mean PS5, well, PlayStation version early.
The
I
early
Yes, the
access.
yeah.
pre-order 3-day privilege or whatever it is
Yeah. Well,
that
whatever.
everyone's doing these days.
I can wait for PC on this. I do think.
Yep.
One, I'm hoping the PC port is fine, and two, you can definitely see a loss of visual fidelity in the performance mode in the demo for
Yeah.
this.
I noticed at the preview event when I switched to performance mode, it's like, oh, some of these textures are a bit lower quality. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
So
sound.
They're definitely pushing something to get it running to 60 on.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of covers it for new releases that we wanted to make sure we earmark some time to talk about at the beginning of the podcast. However, when I was asking the crew here what we wanted to talk about before going into news, James was very eager to talk about something very specific with his time diving back into Apple Arcade this week. So, James, when you had some extra time this week, you were looking at something. Give us a lowdown on what you were looking at.
Yeah. So I guess like everyone in this call played Fantasian, right? I think everyone did. Chow, did you play Fantasian?
Chow's AFK. I have to go get more food.
Oh, never
I
mind.
don't know that he did.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yes, the four of us did.
we
Yeah.
were stuck. Like, some of us were still like, "I'll get an Apple TV just for one game," and that Apple TV is somewhere in a box or something now.
It's in my closet somewhere.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
anyways,
played it on my phone.
yeah. So anyways, a few like a week ago or something like that, the announcement came out that Platinum Games Apple TV well, not Apple TV, Apple Arcade exclusive World of Demons is going to be deleted from existence in from this podcast. Like 5 days. It'll be delisted in 5 days. And once it gets delisted, you'll have until the end of the month to play the game. Then it will no longer work on any Apple device. And so because of that, and because I played a little bit of it when I first got the Apple TV to play Fantasian, I was like, well, this is going to disappear. I should like probably try and actually finish it, because who knows if this will get ported? Probably not. So I kind of wanted to like give it its due, like considering it's just not going to exist in a few weeks. So I did, and I have a few thoughts about that, but even more than that, it's kind of Apple Arcade is weird. I don't think I really realized how weird it was when I played through Fantasian, but especially nowadays, like some of the games that are on there, it's like, wait, that's there? Or wait, that was there? Like apparently there was a Choo Choo Rocket game, like a new Choo Choo Rocket that was really good. It's no longer available because it was delisted in like 2022. Apparently, well, I did also play Sonic Dream Team, that new 3D Sonic game. It's really good. Is it going to be delisted like Choo Choo Rocket in like 2026? Are people just never going to play one of the best 3D Sonic games because it was on Apple Arcade and will eventually just be like Thanos snapped and disappear?
Before you started listing out games, I was basically just going to chime in and say, like, yeah, I have not followed Apple Arcade. I don't really interact with anyone in person or online who really is in that ecosystem. So it is kind of like I paid attention for Fantasian, and then I never really paid attention again to know, like, what is the status of Apple Arcade? Are people in that ecosystem happy? Is it like this weird fringe thing that no one thinks about ever? I just don't know.
I would say if you have like any sort of Apple, like an Apple TV, an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac, there is enough there where I would genuinely recommend like having a sub, because there's some games that are really good. Obviously, Fantasian is still there. Hopefully it stays there. But one thing that kind of like stood out to me when I looked into it is Fantasian and World of Demons came out on the same day in 2021. So I'm not
I vaguely
saying
remember that.
Yeah, so it's like obviously Fantasian, there's been no announcement that's going to be delisted. But seeing World of Demons getting delisted, I'm not going to lie, it makes me uneasy, because that was our RPG of the year 2021. There's no port in sight yet. Like, hopefully one gets announced this year, but it's like one of those things where it's like I'm going through World of Demons, and it's not perfect. Like, I guess I'll talk about that a bit, but it's like, what happens if it never gets...
I feel like mentioning that there is a Steam database page for Fantasian.
I don't
for,
think
like,
that Steam page is...
test.
I don't think that Steam page is real. Like, if you actually look at the SteamDB assets, some of the one, like what they have there, it does not seem like a like any sort of professional asset. So hopefully it's real, but
you have to follow up on if it's real or not. So maybe you don't actually know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I agree with you. It's kind of weird. It's like Tales of List time. It's like it's the same thing with like it's kind of weird in that aspect because it's through Apple Arcade. Like I wonder like what the agreements are to like even warrant it to be delisted. Like I thought they were just gonna be up in naively, I thought that things under the Apple Arcade. It's like, okay, what's really how much does it take for them to keep to stay on Apple Arcade? Like, what's the upkeep cost? If like to me, I'm just like it can't be that much to keep them on Apple Arcade. But who knows? I don't actually know.
Yeah.
But it's also just like a tale as old as time. Like you see this with countless mobile games and games and service where just like they're alive for like a year or two, and then it's like, okay, we're ending service. It's not too far off by like ending service, because once you end service, you're pretty much delisting it, because no one can play it anymore. Like on the same note, like platinum games and like Babylon's Fall, for example, for better or for worse. Not said like to not even judge the game's quality. That's just a full ass game that no one can play anymore. Like if you separate it from the game's quality, that's just a fucking platinum games game that you just can no longer play anymore. And that's also not even talking about like other platinum games projects, not like like Transformers Devastation, for example, delisted years ago, due to licensing agreements, I imagine, on that end. And that just it kind of sucks because the Transformer, like I still have it on my Steam. It's still like I played through it. I was like, hey, there's a pretty rad Transformers game. It's just a shame that like no one else can hasn't been able to buy it for like how many years,
Yeah. But yeah, like actually talking about World of Demons, it's a neat little game. It's like obviously it's meant so that you can play it on a phone. So it's a typical like Platinum Games action style game. Funnily enough, it's also kind of an RPG, so I might for fun just write a review about it, since who else is going to at this point?
Yeah, I tried it out too, and World of Demons is a really interesting. Well, like this and the Castlevania game that went on Apple Arcade, like both of these games, like started their life as like they were planned to release on mobile as like a gacha game, like in service, right? And then, and some of them even had like test runs like at certain regions before they ever saw full release. I don't know if the Castlevania did ever meet full release. I don't know. I don't think World of Demons did. But like but it's kind of both of them like got onto Apple Arcade, and like you can see that's like it was definitely gonna be a full-on mobile gacha game at one point, filled with like microtransactions to purchase currency to go roll. And now it's been kind of like retrofitted to Apple Arcade, where you don't have to worry about real life money transactions, but there's still like daily login bonuses to get the currency to get stuff, right? So it's just like it's a kind of a weird kind of like strapped on thing. It's like, oh, okay, we can't do this anymore, the model anymore, but we don't have enough time to really overhaul the system, per se.
Yeah, it's really funny how like at launch for World of Demons, Platinum said, "Oh, we've completely retooled the game for Apple Arcade." No, they didn't. You can very clearly see the seams of where like the monetization would have been included. You can just feel where the stamina system would have been.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not a bad game though. Which, well, even if it was a bad game, it sucks it's going to disappear, but it's like it's genuinely pretty good. Like the only major problem I have is there's a really weird thing at the end where it's like the game is leading up to a conclusion, and then at the last minute it's like, oh, by the way, this was just the first part of the story. Here's a cliffhanger to be continued. Obviously, that never happened.
And for people who don't know, like the gameplay, like correct me if like I'm trying to remember like exactly what I played, but like these are basically like linear stages. They take a few minutes to complete, and then there's like some parts of it where you go into enemy encounters, and it's a very ink based theming. So it's a little bit like Okami.
Yeah, it's like
a little bit like Okami. And so you have like these you have different playable characters that you unlock, and that there's basic like standard attacks. But I believe like what you would have like rolled for a gacha for like are these like spirits or demons that you can summon, right? And then like you can call upon them and do like either I forget if they do you call upon them to do an attack, or they like give you like certain buffs or effects on your moves.
Yeah, different demons have different things. It's like actually like for like a game that's meant to be played on a phone, I would say that the combat is pretty interesting, like all things considered. Like you have like up to 3 different demons equipped. You have like the 2 that you come into the stage with, and you can have 2 equipped per character, and you can go into each stage with 2 different characters. And then as you defeat demons, you pick up their souls, and then that lets you use them as a one-time move for those sorts of demons. So that's pretty neat. There's also a mechanic where if you have two of the same class or type of demon equipped at the same time, you can hold down the button to do like a special attack with both of them at once. There's some slight puzzle solving in stages where it's like, hey, maybe there's a giant boulder. You need to find a demon that has the ability to crush it so you can get to like a chest there that has like resources and stuff. And it's genuinely a fun time. I wouldn't recommend going through it in a mad dash like I did, because the game is going to be deleted in like 4 or 5 days. But it's a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like if you try to marathon it, you'll definitely see like, hey, it's pretty repetitive in nature. You know, it's not really throwing super like mega curveballs at you. It's just like it was meant to be like, you know, played in short bursts, as like a bite-sized thing you did like on a daily basis. You know.
Yeah.
And
it's like, man, if this had actually gotten like additional updates over time and they had added more story, this could have been a really cool thing. But it's very clear that instead of doing that, they just put what they had on Apple Arcade and then gave up. And now it's like 3 years. Oh, their licensing is done. Yeah, we're just going to pull it and we're going to pretend it didn't even exist.
Yeah,
which sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah,
I agree.
But yeah, it's like just. And I've been going down this rabbit hole because, like, obviously I checked out that, like, Hello Kitty game, like, in July, which is also an Apple Arcade exclusive. I haven't downloaded it proper, but looking into it, it's like there's a surprising number of games and, like, RPGs on Apple Arcade that, like, nobody talks about, that some of them are really good. Apparently, there's a new, like, Animal Crossing style, like, Tamagotchi game that's really good that just came out, like, last month.
Some of them have been escaping the Apple Arcade prison and like coming to Steam or something, but it's like very far, like it's very few in between. Like some of them are able to, you know, finally release on other platforms once their agreement with Apple is up. So
wasn't Various Day Life?
Yes,
Apple Arcade. That one's funny. Apparently, that game is not great. I haven't played it,
Yeah.
but if you like, I know for a while, if you like bundled that with like either Triangle Strategy or Octopath 2 on Steam, it would actually like make it cheaper. Like literally just giving the game away.
They're like, come on, just have Various Day Life in your library.
You want
please.
I mean, I have it because I think when I bought Octopath, I bought something and I bundled it with it.
Yeah,
it's cheaper.
Probably either Triangle Strategy or Live Alive.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but yeah, it's kind of amusing.
But yeah, like World of Demons. If you do have an Apple device and you want to play this, by the time you're listening to this podcast, if it's not on the day that we released it, you might want to download it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like been going through Apple Arcade games, and it's like, man, there's some wild stuff here. Did you know that Pocket Card Jockey 2 exists and it's an Apple Arcade
I heard
exclusive?
about that. Yeah, I heard that was an Apple Arcade. I was like, that's really something to release an Apple Arcade.
Like, Pocket Card Jockey is one of the best 3DS games that nobody talks about. So it's like, I download that. It's like, oh, hell yeah, I'll play that. There's an exclusive, like, Bomberman game that's, like, kind of like a Pac-Man Championship edition type deal with, like, also, like, a higher, like, a focus on music, which is interesting.
There's, like, new Frogger and Pac-Man games that came out of Apple Arcade.
Yeah, there's, like, a couple, like, Frogger games, or, like, kind of in the style of, like, that, like, Tomb Raider, like, isometric. That sort of style game. And then there's also, like, this is the real weird one. So you guys know about that new Samba de Amigo that came out on Switch last year, right?
Yes.
I know of it.
Did you know that game also that a separate Samba de Amigo game also came out on Apple Arcade? It is an upgraded version of the Switch one. The Switch
upgraded version of the Switch.
There are exclusive songs. There is a story mode in the Apple Arcade version, but not the Switch version that is a $40 game. It is just straight up, if you want to play the new Samba de Amigo, play it on Apple Arcade if you can, because it's good. I played a bit of it last night. It's genuinely a good Samba de Amigo. It's a new Samba de Amigo, like a proper new Samba de Amigo, but the version that people will want to play is Apple Arcade exclusive. I think if more people even knew about like what's on Apple Arcade, they'd be pissed off about that.
Yeah, that's wild.
Wasn't there like an exclusive Sonic game on Apple Arcade that's better than the Sonic game?
I was talking about it. Sonic Dream Team. I actually played it like just the other day, and I was like, oh man, this is actually one of the best 3D Sonic games. Unironically, it's like, what the fuck?
I want to believe, like, after that agreement with Apple is up, that like Sega seems like at least the team to put that on other platforms.
Gosh,
Wow.
Choo Choo Rocket was delisted 2 years ago, and it still hasn't been. It hasn't been ported to anything.
I would think Sega would be the ones to put it on their platforms. I guess not.
And the thing that pisses me off is that like the people I've talked to that have played that Choo Choo Rocket game are like, yeah, that was like a really, really good game. It's fucked up. It hasn't been ported. It's like, man, it's like. Moral of the story is, I'm not telling people to go out and like buy an Apple TV to play Fantasian. I'm not doing that because I still hope it'll be ported. But also, like looking at what's there and looking at World of Demons like disappearing in just like a few days. I'm just gonna say it. If you don't feel confident that it's going to get a port or you don't want to chance that, maybe now's the time to try and slot in Fantasian. Because genuinely, we don't know what's going to happen to it in the future. And we're getting close enough to that danger zone where if you've ever wanted to play it, now's the time to consider your options.
I mean, that's a big ask with like the upcoming releases.
I know.
That's not a great time frame.
I know
it's not a great time frame.
I know it sucks, but it's true. It just...
James is here to tell you, go skip Yakuza or go skip Like a Dragon, go skip Persona 3, go skip Granblue
You know what?
Relink.
You know what? Those games will still be on Steam or the PlayStation Store 2 years from now. We can't be sure that Fantasian will still be on Apple Arcade 2 years from now.
Right. Fuck those games. Go play Fantasian right now.
It's a very hard sell.
Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about with Apple Arcade. Kind of a tangent from what we usually talk about, but I figured it was worth like a small like PSA and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where that's sort of, I don't know, that sort of paradigm is just going to be more and more common as more games are tied to subscription services or platform-based storefronts.
Yeah, I mean, it just, that's unfortunately the fucking timeline. One day, the original Granblue Fantasy base game will no longer be available to play at all.
I'll be sad, but I also feel like a relief.
You'll be sad, but you'll be happy.
It's like I'm out of prison. It's like Stockholm syndrome, It's like you're stuck here so long, and then you became part of the cause, and then it's like, oh wait,
you became part of the
problem.
And then Adam, how many games do you have like installed on your Wii and Wii U from those shutdowns that you just have on your backlog?
Yeah, so when like the Wii U Virtual Console is about to shut down, I just went ahead and bought a bunch of stuff on it. Just one example, I own Crystal Chronicles: My Life as a King. I've never played it, but you can't get it anywhere else, so I was like, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, what a special Wii that is.
And then
do you still have the Domino Pizza app?
No, I don't have the Domino Pizza app. But also there was like rumors, or I don't know if it was a rumor or I'm trying to remember when there was news that like the PlayStation Store was going to shut down, like the old version of it, with all the like PlayStation 1 classics and whatnot. And then so I went ahead and kind of filled up my PlayStation 3 hard drive with a bunch of those. And then I think they reversed the decision. They're like, no, well these are still available. But now I still have a PlayStation 3 sitting around that has a bunch of digital games on it that eventually you won't be able to get. So
I mean, even then, like I believe
you can't play those on a PlayStation 4 or 5.
Yeah,
so they're still
I believe the
kind of locked away. Even though
I believe the fallout of that.
Available.
I believe the fallout of that is like still some games of that era like did get delisted. Silently.
Games are slowly getting delisted anyway.
Yeah,
but the store did not shut down, not yet.
Yeah. So that's just kind of the unfortunate digital future.
I've talked before how like we have a news today about this Nintendo Switch Online subscription, and I honestly would just prefer it just be like Virtual Console still rather than a subscription, honestly. But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I would rather they just put it up like for sale in the shop.
Right.
And then that'd be great.
Remember when they put Fire Emblem 1 like available to play for
you could buy it for like 2 months.
Yeah, fuck man, that was fucking weird. And that reminds me of the Super Mario game bundle as well that they only sold for like a limited time as well. It's like I don't fucking understand anything.
Well, that covers us for the games we've been playing section of the podcast. And not a huge news slate, but a couple big headlines here. Opening up with the big, not reveal, but the big detailing of the upcoming expansion for Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, including the announcement of a new job. And as always, when talking about Final Fantasy XIV, I'm going to rely and leverage the expertise of James and Chow to kind of break down for us normies what it is we're looking at. So I do know that they announced the Pictomancer. It's a ranged DPS class. I saw that they showed a few things with like female Hrothgar and some dungeons, but we'll hand it off back to James to talk about, as someone who plays the game, I think still pretty regularly, what about the details given at FanFest about Dawntrail what's the relevant key info? What are the big ticket items here?
Yeah. So we're kind of in the lull between expansions, and I'm pretty sure Chow feels the same way. Where like, I'm sure we're still logging on here and there, but I'm not actively playing it because like 6.5 dropped. I believe 6.55 comes like in just a couple of days, so I'll probably log in for that. But yeah, I've been logging in every so often, but not really playing it actively because there's no new content. It's like,
Yeah, it
but
is pretty low kind of stage. I mean, I
it
have friends
happens.
that plays. It's like even they don't find like the new setting up story arc kind of interesting either. But we'll see how it goes.
I wasn't saying that, Chow. I'm just saying that we're at the point where people that have caught up, there's not really too much of a reason for them to actively log in, unless there's somebody that just literally lives and breathes 14 and nothing else.
Wow, you got something to do because you have a house to maintain. You're
Well,
forced to pay for subscription for life
you're right.
now.
You're right. I just log in once a month and make sure that I log out of my house. That way it doesn't get auto demolished. but anyways, so the last FanFest before Dawntrail happened in Tokyo. One thing, looking at how the Tokyo FanFest went, they really need to improve the next North American FanFest because it was already a bad enough like comparison when Europe happened, and it was like, man, this is way more like this looks like it was way better organized than the Las Vegas one. Now we're looking at Tokyo, and it's like, man, there's a lot of folks that were really burnt by how the Las Vegas FanFest went last year. But anyways, they revealed the the last new job being added to Dawntrail. During the Europe Fan Fest, they officially revealed Viper, which was a melee DPS. Really interesting thing where you have like two different like swords that combine into like I don't know the exact name of the weapon, but it's like a double-bladed like spear type thing.
We'll just say what Surge used in Chrono Cross.
Yeah, something like that. So that was cool. They revealed the other new job coming to the game with the full trailer for Dawntrail at the Tokyo Fan Fest, and it is Pictomancer. It was one of those ones that people kind of expected, just because I remember back at the Las Vegas Fan Fest, one of the things that Yoshi P does is that he'll actually wear shirts that are kind of like a tease for what one of the new jobs is going to be, and he wore a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt, and people were like, what the fuck does that mean? And people were like, well, all of the turtles have names based off of artists, and so what if the new job is like Ink Mage? Because there was like a Ink Mage in the 5.3 dungeon, which was kind of like a cheeky reference to, oh, these are different like warriors of light from different like worlds. So the Ink Mage, maybe that might be a new class. And I guess it sort of is because Pictomancer was officially revealed as the new magical ranged caster DPS job that's coming in Dawntrail.
I have an obvious question that shows how out of the loop I am. Is Ninja a class or not?
Yes.
Yes. It was.
I
It
was
was.
say, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Couldn't that just be Ninja?
It used to be known as like one of the hardest melee class to play because you had to press so much buttons so fast.
You still kind of have to. But anyways, yeah. So that was like the main like announcement. They also showed off female Rothgars. Those were announced, I believe, technically before Endwalker came out, because Endwalker they announced male Vieira, and they were like, okay, so we said that Vieira and Hrothgar were only going to be like gender locked, like you would only get female Vieira and you would only get male Hrothgar. But obviously, now that we're making male Vieira, we're going to have to make female Hrothgar. Those won't come until 7.x, which would be eventually was revealed as Dawntrail. So we knew they were coming. We knew that they were going to be part of this upcoming expansion, but we finally got a trailer for it. I feel like most people are happy with how they turned out. There were some folks who were worried they were going to be not enough like the Hrothgars that are already in the game, but I feel like they kind of struck the balance that most people are happy with. So they had a little trailer showing those off. I know people are excited for those. They also showed off a bit of the locations that we're going to be exploring in Dawntrail proper. And the other main thing, probably the most significant thing they showed off at FanFest this time around was, I don't think I need to say it, but especially considering some of the comments from Yoshi P in the lead up to Final Fantasy 16, there has been a concern that Creative Business Unit 3 has some issues when it comes to diversity, and that might be putting it mildly. And one of the things that 14 has had a problem with for a very long time is that the way that like materials work in 14, darker skinned characters basically are illegible. You can't really see them in darker areas because the way that light reflects off of skin tones in that game was very clearly designed only for lighter skinned characters. So one of the things they showcased at Tokyo Fan Fest and made a very big deal about when showing off the graphical changes to the like graphical update that's coming with Dawntrail is they said, hey, we know that we've been really bad when it comes to darker skinned characters in 14 in the past. And one of the main things that we're trying to do with the graphical update is to make sure that characters that have darker skin tones are way more legible in darker environments. And so they showed a few examples about how like darker skin tone characters will look with the graphical update. And it's like, that's really nice to see. I know a lot of folks were worried about Dawntrail, not just because of like the stuff that happened with 16, but also just because the entire like kind of conceit of Dawntrail is a bit worrying, considering you're literally at least in the trailers, a white male coming to the new world to settle a dispute in leadership in basically Brazil. And it's like, so seeing the dev team at least say, hey, we're working on this aspect that we've had issues with in the past has given a lot of folks a bit more, I don't know the best way of putting this. It's put people more at ease because it shows that the dev team understands that they need to do better and they're actively making an effort to do so, which is good. Which I can't, obviously I can't speak to it. I'm white, but I've seen a lot of folks that have said that they're really happy for at least this much, and it's making people a lot less anxious.
It's kind of neat, I think, because it's like that sort of addition and being able to platform that on a stage kind of crosses, like it's a technical thing, just making sure that their engine, their lighting system can reflect what they want to do with the darker skin characters in the darker areas. It's basically, it's not content that is time gated in a way. It's basically something that'll be with the game for the rest of its lifetime. So it's something that'll pay dividends throughout that. So it's kind of like this cross between artistic, technical, quality of life, all in one, which is, I think, kind of neat to see. I did have one question about how the races work in Final Fantasy 14. So let's say they announce that starting with Dawntrail, you can play as a female Hrothgar. Now, if you wanted to play as that, does that require a brand new character starting at level 1, or are there ways to shortcut around that if you've leveled up
You
the character
can-
already, or how does that work?
You can buy a vial of Fantasia to change your character's basically like base parameters. You can change their gender, you can change their race, you can change pretty much everything about them if you buy one of those. Thankfully, because of the graphical update, they are giving everyone a free vial because they know that they've been trying very hard to make sure that even though the graphical update looks better, inevitably some folks are not going to like how their characters look in the new update. So they decided, just to be on the safe side, they're giving everyone a free chance to redo aspects of their character without paying for a vial, because they know that inevitably at least a few people are going to be like, oh, I don't like how mine looks now. I kind of want to change it.
That kind of
So-
happened to me in Ion. It's the same thing. They did like a graphic update, and my character, I actually like the way she looks before, but after the graphic update, it's like, this looks all wrong. The lighting is all different. It's just
Yeah.
I had to like redo
This
it.
isn't
like,
quite the same, but I know even a few people with Baldur's Gate 3, you make your character in the character creator, but then like in the cutscenes in the game, the lighting's a little different, and you're like, actually, I
Yeah.
wish I could change this, and you couldn't originally. Now you can. They added an update where you can
Yeah.
change. But whenever you're messing with things like lighting, for sure, it's a good idea. Just allow people to change their character look.
Yeah. So technically that means anyone that picks up Dawntrail, they can just immediately switch to female Rothgar if they want to. So
No, I think that's neat, because not like, well, we have this, but at the cost of you having to start all over. So it's good to know that they have that
Yeah.
right in there.
yeah, the last bit of news from Tokyo Fan Fest that I guess is kind of a big deal, but only really for a specific subset of 14 players. The newest Ultimate Raid got officially announced, and not too many details, but despite the fact that most people expected the newest Ultimate Raid to be based off of the Stormblood main scenario, they're skipping ahead and immediately going to the Shadowbringers 8-person raid for the basis of the new Ultimate Raid.
I was so hyped for that because I fucking love Eden. I think that's the greatest raids that they ever designed for the Savage tier.
Yeah, and I know quite a few people that are like, man, I'm glad that before this were like, I'm glad I don't have to raid immediately because I only care about the Shadowbringers raid, and once that happens, I will raid so I can do the ultimate. And it's like, fuck, because they were planning on just skipping the next Stormblood ultimate, so they're like, oh, I'll wait until 2025 to raid so I can get into the newest ultimate. It's like, nope. You're raiding at launch because you're not going to want to deal with Party Finder, so you can get your clears so you can do an ultimate raid. I am sorry.
They're planning to have a good year.
I can't wait for Light Rampant to traumatize people again. It's such a good way to get traumatized. It's like, can you draw a bow tie with your party member? No. Then you're all fucking dead.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are going to be like, oh no, they're going to make Light Rampant worse. So that's gonna be a fun time.
It's gonna play rock paper scissors. You have to draw out the proper answer to it. So
I wouldn't be shocked if there was something like that where it's like you have to do a different maneuver depending on, maybe you have to do it multiple. Anyways, it's going to be interesting. Yeah. I'm probably gonna rate it.
Well,
Yeah. Anyways, Dawntrail is looking to be pretty good. I feel like a lot of folks were kind of more muted in how they felt about it in the first couple of fan fests leading up to this. I feel like with the information they've shown off now, I feel like you're starting to get some more of that hype. And I'm sure later this year there's going to be the preview event for Dawntrail, and I assume we'll probably get an invite, and I'm guessing April,
Do we have a
May.
date? Oh, you're answering my question for me.
This is summer for it.
Summer, so probably June or
okay.
July. So I'm assuming the preview event will probably be April or May. So the next we'll hear about Dawntrail will probably be around then, and you'll probably hear about it on the podcast.
Yeah, and they said they didn't want to announce a firm release date because what happened with Endwalker was they announced it and later on they delayed it by a month because certain stories wasn't ready or they wanted to change because it didn't feel right. And they don't want to make any commitment this time in case something like that happens again.
This title just shadow drop it. It's like it's actually out now.
Like a Square Enix move in an Epic Game Store.
The next piece of news that we have is the one that Adam kind of teed up earlier in this podcast. It's an announcement for a game on the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack subscription. So this is remind me how this works. This is the upper tier of the two possible
It's basically
Nintendo
like
Online
the premium
subscriptions.
Nintendo subscription.
Yeah.
There's a couple different
And
tiers.
that is that they announced that Golden Sun and Golden Sun: The Lost Age will be available to play on Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack this week, January 16th. So, of course, some games that are, near and dear and nostalgic for a lot of us, at least us older people, us boomers. Though I've only played a little bit of the first one, and I think the second one is the one that people,
The second one's a good
experience,
one, but the thing is,
Yeah,
I don't think really highly of this series. I know a lot of people do, but I feel like the story, people just talk forever and it doesn't go
I
anywhere.
think they're okay. I'm not like super like I'm not like super like yay Golden Sun. Just like it's like okay to me.
When people say like, what was it? The DS version also bombed. What was the DS one
Dark
called?
Dawn.
Dawn. Oh man, yeah, I remember that one failed. And I was like, oh, that's what I expected. Oh, I feel like no, there's like a very big following from this series. Like, no.
I'm big following for this series.
Anyways, so Golden Sun, it's basically a game of GBA. It's a pair of GBA games that released like on 2000 and 2001 or something like that, right around there. And it's pretty much one of those games that feels like a single game split in two. The first game by itself, honestly, I don't think it's great, but it's pretty much just a lead up to the second game, which I say is good. I'm not like Josh, I'm not like a gigantic Golden Sun fan. I'm sorry for listeners who wanted us to be more excited about this. I think it's a good game, but really, the first game is more just like an appetizer to the second. And a couple of things that Golden Sun I think does really well, or at least like differently than games like maybe made in the modern day. First of all, dungeons are back. Dungeons in the JRPGs is always like a tricky topic because some people love dungeons and some people think they're like an antiquated, design thing that have no place in the genre anymore. But Golden Sun games have dungeons with puzzles and block pushing and a bunch of Dijin mechanics and things like that. And so that's a pretty big component of the game, and I think it's pretty cool that part. And I mentioned the Dijin or Dijini, forget exactly what they're called. This mechanic is actually pretty unique. If you're not familiar, throughout the game, you can pick up these basically little elemental creatures called Dijin or Dijini, and they can basically, you equip them to your characters, and you can kind of determine how many you set on each character. You have 4 characters, and they're one for each element. There's like fire, earth, ice, and wind, or something like that, or water and wind. But you basically can set them to your characters and improve their stats, or you can set them in a certain different way for like summoning capability. And there's a bunch of different like summons in the game. So there's this kind of interesting balancing act of like how you want to appropriate or allocate your Diginis that you find. And there's also that collectible aspect of trying to find them through the various puzzles and side quests and things like that, or navigation, exploration sort of things. So those are some mechanics that I think are pretty unique and interesting to Golden Sun. Chow is right. One thing about these games that I don't think people might remember, but it's actually kind of annoying, is the dialogue in these games is very slow. The characters talk very slowly, and after like every line of dialogue, they do like an emoji type reaction. I hope I'm making sense. Or there's like a weird like emoticon face or like icon that kind of like gives their like mood, and it kind of just drags things out.
I have not played Golden Sun, but I have played Mario Golf Advanced Tour, which has the exact same thing. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're not far
that's
off.
also Camelot,
Same
right?
developer, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's Camelot. Yep.
So that part I think is actually kind of annoying. It's kind of cute at first, but then it kind of drags on. But there's also an interesting thing with like when you play the first game, and then there's sort of a cliffhanger ending and leading to the second game. It does the kind of neat. It's not totally novel these days, but you change protagonists, you change your perspective. You're like playing as a new party of characters. in the second game, but it is a direct continuation of the first game. And that's not a spoiler. That's just like a premise thing, really. Nowadays, you can even see it in the key art that they showed for this announcement. You basically show it's Felix and Isaac are the two main characters. Isaac of the first
And
game,
whoever's the
Felix
main
of the second.
character
Yeah,
of that game will not talk.
yeah. And then he talks in the second game, right? Or I'm trying to remember.
Or he doesn't talk in the second game. He talks in the first game, like Felix, for
Oh,
example.
I
Right?
got it.
It's
I
the
got it
Persona
backwards.
2 problem. Ah,
Yeah. But yeah, and I honestly think Dark Dawn is a fine game. I actually had a friend make a kind of a fun like comparison. So this is sort of a tangent. I'm sorry, but the end of Golden Sun 2 leaves a couple of like lingering questions. Not necessarily. Golden Sun 2 is the Lost Age. It's not necessarily a cliffhanger. There's sort of like a lingering thread, and the thread is basically, where's Alex? Alex is one of the characters in the game, kind of the antagonist. And then Dark Dawn comes along and doesn't. This is like years later and doesn't elaborate on this at all, and then sort of also ends on the cliffhanger. Where's Alex? And it like never follows up on that. So when people say like Dark Dawn didn't like conclude or wrap up stuff and just leaves more questions, that's kind of what they're referring to. And the comparison that a friend of mine made is it's like Shenmue 3, where like you get a new continuation, but it doesn't actually continue anything. It just leaves the question still hanging about like where's Londi, I guess, in that case.
Yep.
But anyways, I think Dark Dawn is a fine game. Maybe not excellent, but it's fine. But it doesn't have an ending. It does, but it leaves room for more that'll probably never happen. But anyways, sorry if I'm sounding a little down, but I think the fact that these games that were like brought back in some way into a subscription service is cool. It sort of is that Nintendo remembers that these games exist, sort of thing.
But it's
Which
still
is something.
It's still weird that like it's locked behind a subscription
Yeah,
service.
I mean, I mentioned that earlier. So
Yeah,
I would just love it if some of these classic games, whether it's these more niche titles or something like Ocarina of Time, you could just buy a digital version on Switch and play it. That would be nice, but you can't.
I have a question. Do you think Mother Free will ever come to any of these things?
I mean, I would have said no, but then you get stuff like the first Fire Emblem randomly showed up. I know that was like on
yeah,
the Wii U.
yeah. Okay, fine. Here it'll come, but it'll only be available for 1 week. Go.
Yeah.
I think there was literally a chance for Mother 3 to come out on the Wii U. I believe the rumor that circulated where Nintendo looked into it, but ultimately decided that the Magypsies were too sort of a subject, and they knew that if they changed it, people would be angry. If they didn't change it, people would be angry, and they decided they just didn't want to touch it. I genuinely think that's what happened.
Yeah,
I've never
okay,
played Mother
I'll buy
3,
it.
so I'm actually not familiar with these.
I'll buy it. Better just leave it there.
If people want to play it, there's a really good fan translation that's been around for over a decade. So
It is a little bit like, I don't know if sour is the right word, but it's like, hey, it's Golden Sun. Prior to this week, if you wanted to play it, you had to pull out your old GBA or GBA SP and grab a cart and hope it's not a bootleg.
I
And
mean, you don't have to do that. There's other easier ways to do this. There's super easy ways to do this for a very long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my god!
I mean, like officially. I suppose if you want to support the release.
I mean, how are you really supporting the release? These things have been out of print for God knows how long.
Yeah. So
How are you supporting it? You go to a pawn shop. Oh, I'll get this for a very high price, probably.
Don't worry,
Yeah,
I have
actually,
a sealed copy of Mother Free I bought it for $40 from some dude. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm really supporting.
I wonder how much secondhand Golden Sun carts cost.
I'm really supporting it by paying like $1,000 for it at a pawn shop. There,
You know, back then people were trying so hard to get rid of Mother Free. Like I remember, like was it Play Asia? They were selling it for like $40 for the Game Boy Micro edition, like for $40, and nobody was buying it for some stupid reason. Like they were trying to like get rid of this on clearance.
Well, with that, we'll move on to some trailers. So let's see here. Out of all these trailers, I think the one that is maybe most interesting is we got a maybe not, because it was actually pretty short. A short new trailer for the upcoming PC release of Horizon Forbidden West. So we kind of know that this is coming. It's slated for. Do we have a window for it slated
I
for?
think it just said early this year.
Yeah.
Early this year. And then this wasn't actually announced by Sony, but it was an NVIDIA announcement that was tied to CES, which just happened or is going on potentially still right now. Just an NVIDIA GeForce DLSS 3 whatever showcase for the upcoming Horizon Forbidden West, and it's only like 40 seconds of basically technically focused trailer. But kind of also just a reminder, like, oh yeah, Horizon Forbidden West, that didn't release on PC yet. Horizon Zero Dawn, when it did release for PC, kind of released in not the greatest shape. But that was when, who ported that one? Virtuous? Was that it?
Well, the new
This
one
was
is
Guerrilla Games.
Nick Says, which was bought by Sony
Yeah,
in the
because
meantime, I
yeah,
think.
that's kind of, you teed up basically kind of what I was getting to, is that Horizon Zero Dawn was that was Sony's first PC project, right?
Yeah, it was either
And
the
it
first
was
or one of
Yeah.
the first. Yeah.
I will
Is-
say that it's funny how like it's not incorrect to say that like the original Horizon Zero Dawn port had a bit of a messy start, but I feel like compared to a lot of PC ports these days, it's actually one of the better ones at launch.
Well, Brian's
remember I-
mentioned
I
before that
reviewed
his
that
experience
one.
is actually not too bad.
Yeah, but it wasn't great, and since then, I think Sony has been kind of up and down with their PC ports.
Seems
The
like
one
it
that
depends
was
on who
real
ports
bad
it.
was Last of Us. I remember was real interesting.
Was that
some of
like
the things
Iron
that came out of
Galaxy?
that. I don't
No,
remember.
Last of Us, it was Naughty Dog themselves. They wanted to do it themselves.
Oh.
And since they didn't have any PC porting experience because they're an internal Sony studio, there were some issues with regards to like memory allocation. And like one thing I think at launch people noticed is that instead of having like like the memory system was retooled to better work on a PC where you have VRAM and system memory separate. Instead, it basically tried to have like every like the same data in both video memory and system memory at the same time, because like the PS5 is like a unified memory system. So it was just a mess. And then there was issues with like texture quality and like VRAM requirements for textures, and a lot of that's been fixed now. Now it's actually decent enough, but at launch it was definitely this is a bit of a mess.
Yeah, Virtuous did Zero Dawn, and then last year or a little over a year ago, Sony acquired Nixxes as a specific like studio for PC porting, and then they're the ones doing Forbidden West.
And Nixxes
So-
has been doing pretty good PC ports for a long time now. I remember back in like the Eidos, before they were a Sony studio, they did a bunch of Eidos
Tomb
ports.
Raider 2013, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to say all their ports are excellent. I'm sure they've had a few issues here and there, but overall, just in general, pretty good. So, and I think, did they do the Spider-Man PC port? I think the first one.
I think they might have. That sounds right. That sounds right. Let me double check really quick though, because
I'm checking right now. Yes,
There's
they
also
did.
there was also a Ratchet and Clank Rift in Time PC.
Oh, and
Yeah,
they're doing that
Rift
one, too.
Apart. Yeah, they did do that one. I do know Ratchet and Clank had some issues with regards to its like okay, Nixxes did do Spider-Man Remastered on PC, but yeah, they also did Ratchet and Clank. That was generally a good port, though it did have issues with its what's it called? Direct storage implementation, because there was like a performance drop if you had it enabled, which if your system supported it, it would automatically be enabled. And some people were like, delete this one DLL file from the games directory and you'll get less performance dips during sections where like the like portals would be used. Like, so it was a bit of a mess there. I think it's better now. And it was like the first PC game to use direct storage with the GPU decompression. So it makes sense there would be some teething issues. But yeah.
Anyways, the game itself, I think I'm the only one who's played it. It's fine. It's good enough. I don't think these Horizon games, they're not groundbreaking. They're not stellar. They kind of feel like a Ubisoft game with a better combat system. Because I do think the ranged kind of trap-based combat in Horizon is a high point. It's something that it does do a little bit differently than a lot of open world AAA exploration action RPGs. And this game does make a few changes from the original that are a little bit weird. I remember one person made a kind of a weird kind of complaint, like is Horizon Forbidden West trying to be like Mass Effect, because there's a little bit more emphasis on like companions, but it's kind of weirdly implemented because the game doesn't have like a party. You just kind of collect companions, sort of. It's kind of like loosely attached to the game itself. I remember playing the Burning Shores expansion, which that expansion was PS5 only, where the whole game itself was cross-gen, PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And I remember playing that expansion, and it's basically like Guerrilla Games flexing. It looks really nice, like in terms of just pure visual fidelity. It looks really, really good on PS5. So I'm kind of curious, like, what can they do with the PC version of this game? It might look outstanding. Brian, do you think you're going to be playing this since you played the first one on PC?
I
like
want to play it
eventually?
eventually
Yeah.
because now I kind of have that investment now where it's like, oh, I can't leave the second one undone because my brain is rotted. But it all depends on when it releases. Like if it's
Right.
going to release in March, I'll be like, nope, or April, nope, May, sure. Like
February,
sort of thing.
yes. You're right.
March 22nd.
Oh God.
There you go.
He's gonna ignore every big release to play Forbidden.
Oh no! But what about Princess Peach Showtime?
That's
Oh,
true.
that's already out, isn't it?
No, that comes out on the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin.
Oh, easiest skip ever.
And the
Yay,
Legend of
that's
Legacy.
That's gonna
Yeah.
probably sell better than both of those games. Have you seen how many copies Luigi's Mansion 3 sold?
That's true.
Yep, that'll be coming out later this year, and NVIDIA is flexing on it. So hopefully, just for everyone's like egg on their face or lack thereof, that it releases in a slightly better state.
Get your
the first game
40,
did.
70, or 80 supers ready or whatever.
Yeah.
Are you going to get a 40 whatever super, Ryan?
He has a
depends.
4090, so he's probably set.
Yeah, it has a 4090.
okay.
There's no reason. There's no reason. Like, I think. Yeah.
We have a couple other trailers and announcements. Here's a game that I'm not well familiar with. Maybe someone here can carry me as I fumble through this. But we've got an announcement of another Xuan Yuan Sword game. Xuan Yuan Sword
Or
Gate of the
Xuan
Firmament.
Yuan, I think is how it's
Yeah,
pronounced.
Chow, help me out here, Chow.
Adam's right.
Xuan, there you go. Xuan Yuan Sword Gate of the Firmament has been announced for PS5, and then Xuan Yuan Sword 7 has been the Switch release of that game has been updated. So this came as part of an East Asia Soft showcase that showed both of these games in a little 10-minute, 12-minute little video stream. That's
I just
about as
find it
much as I
funny
know.
that was it the screenshots in our page? They're all talking in Japanese.
Oh, I just saw that. Okay, yeah.
You know, we're advertising a Chinese game, but the screenshots are all in Japanese.
I mean, it's not the weirdest thing in the world. Like, you know, some Chinese mobile games, they don't have Chinese voice acting; they have Japanese voice acting in them.
Do
Hey,
people realize that
we're-
Genshin is Chinese and not Japanese?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And here, Adam, we got another trailer for a game that you were kind of looking forward to. We talked last week about how certain publishers, for better or for worse, depending on the game, end up like releasing so many trailers, and depending on your point of view, it can either be seen as smart or obnoxious, just depending on multiple factors.
Maybe those are the same.
We've been getting a slew of trailers for this game, Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden, which was moved from a crazy stacked time last year to a crazy stacked time this year, coming out in February, and we got yet another trailer for it. This is like the ninth
There's a lot.
trailer or something, or maybe not ninth, but we've gotten a significant number of trailers for this game, so they're doing their best for trying to get their game some attention.
Anyways, if you're not familiar with this
in
game,
February.
this is a game from French studio Don't Nod, team behind the original couple Life is Strange games, as well as there are action RPG 3 or 4 years ago, Vampire. And one thing that Dontnod has said in a lot of their like financial results is that for their like biggest projects, they're really focusing in on these like RPG mechanics and RPG games. So this is probably one of that studio's biggest games ever made. I'm sure it is. They also release a lot of smaller games too. Like they had Gerda Flame of Winter was like an action adventure sort of game that came out not too long ago. No, I'm not sure if I'm getting my studios mixed up. Who developed Jusant and didn't? I think James played that.
That
right?
was Dontnod, yeah.
It was the same studio, yeah. So what my point is that they kind of have like these smaller indie AA scale games, and then like this is sort of the opposite end of the spectrum. This is probably one of their bigger budget games. I played Vampire last year, kind of in preparation for this. I'm curious about this game. The main premise of the game, I know we've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. There's like two main characters, man and a woman. They're married or lovers in some way, and they're ghost hunters. Like they kill ghosts and various afterlife beings and whatnot. But premise of the game is the woman dies and sort of becomes a ghost herself. So kind of have that weird, pairing of we are ghost hunters and one of us is a ghost. So
this is an Unreal Engine 5 game, isn't it?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
That would make sense because I know Jusant was, and just looking at the trailer, it's like I've played a lot of Unreal Engine 5 games last year, so I'm starting to kind of notice its little tricks. So
now, when I played Vampire last year, and I mentioned this on the podcast, Vampire had some really interesting like dialogue mechanics in terms of the way you like how you interact with NPCs and how you learn more about them. There's like a whole web of learning about NPCs, and in that game it literally gave you experience, which I think was kind of interesting in terms of like a vampire game, kind of reminding me of Vampire the Masquerade. But the combat in that game was pretty poor. It was acceptable. So I'm curious to see how this game's mechanics work, both like combat as well as dialogue NPCs, if there's really much of that, or quests, things like that. So, but it comes out in the middle of February, which is not an ideal time.
Not ideal, yeah. Yeah, it's like I did really enjoy Jusant, which I literally only played because it was on Game Pass and I needed a game to play. But that was good enough that I'm willing to give some more of their games a shot. So
you're going to play Vampire.
Not at launch. not at launch. Too many games.
I mean, it's already out. Vampire's been out for a while.
Yeah, played Vampire, not Banishers. So
sorry, yeah.
And that's coming out. That's coming out in February. Coming out in March, we have Vanillaware and Atlus's new game, Unicorn Overlord, and we kind of had, I don't know what you call it, like a newsletter update for this game, detailing characters and some gameplay features. Was it right before the holiday break?
It was somewhere there.
Like November.
Yeah, it was around December-ish. Yeah.
And then they released a trailer now called Unicorn Overlord Commander's Guidance Exploration Tips. So it seems like this is going to be, my guess is like the first of a series of kind of like gameplay focused snippet videos. So this first one is about 3 minutes long, and it talks about like overworld exploration, finding settlements that need help, how quests are involved. You get a lot of look at like the UI here, which I always like to see. Not only like the art that Vanillaware is known for and the dialogue and the portraits, but like how the quest menus will show up, main quest, side quest, liberation.
You like seeing what the player will actually see when they're playing the video game.
Yeah, how the game actually works.
Crazy.
And then talks about how, you'll find some settlements that you have to supply some materials to, and then once you do, you can like interact with that place. And the thing they focus on here is opening taverns to be able to see like the food art that was shown. So it's like, oh, that's how that is interfaced in the I
will make taverns all around the continent. You're right, Vanillaware. They actually released a second trailer for this game. That's actually what I thought was pretty cool, but it's only for people who's getting the collector's edition. They showed like a really nice like video tutorial with like a nice infographic of like exactly how the Unicorn Overlord tabletop card game that's in the collector's edition is played. It's actually a pretty nice video for like people who are interested in like maybe thinking about getting the collector's edition who are really into like tabletop card games. So they give a really nice video tutorial up on the Atlus YouTube
There's
about that.
also a trailer for a 16-bit soundtrack.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really good. hmm They give soundtrack samples for the 16-bit album coming with it in the collectors.
I think this is actually like my second like most hyped game of this year, more than Relink and stuff. It's just
It seems really cool. I'm
I'm
there
looking
with
so
you.
forward to it.
Yeah, it's I'm excited.
What's your first, Chow? I'm curious. Chow, what's
Yeah.
your first most hyped game? If
Seven
it's the second.
Rebirth.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
The rest of the headlines here are some like release dates and sales updates. Fuga, Melodies of Steel, has sold the series, so the first and second game, 400,000 downloaded copies between 1 and 2. In addition, we have a new available demo for Fuga Melodies of Steel 2, where you can play chapter 1, 2, and it says up to chapter 3. I believe this is available on all the game's platforms. So good to know that the game has been seeing some success, even though the fact that they're pairing the first and second game together is kind of obscuring how well the second game might have done relative to the first. I don't know if you ever
Also-
got any sales updates for only the first game to try to glean what the split might look like. Go ahead,
Also,
James.
this is one of those things where both Fuga 1 and 2 have been on Game Pass, and they're saying downloads. So we really don't know how much it sold since it's been on Game Pass. I wouldn't be shocked if ever since these games were added to Game Pass, if sales dropped off a cliff, because it wasn't exactly selling super hot to begin with. And I remember right after the Game Pass deal was announced, that was when CyberConnect 2 said, yeah, the series is now profitable, because it was in the red before then. So it was literally the Game Pass deal that made it so that these games ended up being a financial success.
Yeah. And
Well,
then
I mean, that's just good news, because then, like, I think we talked about this back when we shared that information. Like, yeah, the sales might have dropped off the cliff, but if the Game Pass deal allowed them to be in the black as a result of the releasing the game on Game Pass, then
It's
all the better for it.
Yeah, I hope we still get a 3. Things have been a bit shaky. Like, I remember when I asked about it at Anime Expo, I was given an answer that was very dismissive of the idea. And then there's been like a few statements afterwards that kind of makes it unclear whether or not a third game is still in development. Like, it seems like the president of CyberConnect 2 is all gung-ho on making Fuga 3, which makes sense. He is very openly a furry. not even an exaggeration. So it's like he's probably like pushing them to make a third one, which, I mean, all power to him. But like, it does not seem like some other folks in the company are super keen on the idea, which I guess would make sense if the only reason that 1 and 2 were successful is if they got a Game Pass deal. So if they can't get the same for the third game, the chances are it's not going to be financially viable, I'd imagine.
And alongside this news, the only other nugget is that there were some celebratory illustrations made celebrating the 400,000 downloads.
I'd like to see the other trilogy of Vengeance games before a third Fuga game, to be honest.
Yeah, one thing
CyberConnect
I was told at Anime Expo is that I know one of them was Cecile, and then other one was Tokyo Ogre
Gate.
So yeah, Tokyo Ogre Gate. Apparently, those two games are now in active development. So
Yeah.
it might be a case of Fuga 3 is coming, but they're focusing on the other two trilogy of Vengeance games first, because they're different IPs. Like, obviously, Fuga 2, only people who played Fuga 1 should play that, and Fuga 3, you'd have to play the first two. Two entirely different games with different gameplay styles. There's more of a chance of those being successful. So it would make sense for them to focus on those first and give Fuga 3 like a smaller team as they work on the other stuff first. If I was in charge, that's what I would do. And it seems like that might be what they're doing.
Coming out in February. This is going into release dates now. We're getting Wolong Fallen Dynasty Complete Edition as a digital release on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox. So this is kind of everything you would expect it to be throughout last year. Wolong got 3 DLC packs and a few collaborations. The Complete Edition will package in anything that was pre-ordered with the game, the 3 DLC packs, the armors, the Neo 2, Naraka Blade Point, and Lies of P collaborations. The only thing that seems like is new to this, I think, Adam, is this thing they mentioned, the 1,000-mile journey. They call that new endgame content. I don't know what that is. The press release doesn't really go into detail, but basically an all-in-one gold edition for Wolong, which is pretty, I think, kind of expected at this
It's
point.
standard.
Whenever there is,
The Neo games
yeah,
have
like
it, so
mhm.
you know.
You get your 3 DLCs once every 3 months, and then it all gets packaged together at the end.
The only ever like weird thing it ever got was like the Lies of P collaboration. It's like, all right, sure, I
Yeah,
guess.
before the game released, right?
Yeah. It's like
So-
I feel like it's funny because like nowadays it definitely seems like Liza P had a much bigger splash on the Souls-like playing audience. Like,
Mhm.
so yeah.
And that was from like a newcomer to the block in terms of developer.
I'm pretty
But-
sure that collaboration came about just because the team at NeoWiz was just like, we like the Team Ninja games, so we contacted them, I guess, to do a collab.
And now Neo is like, oh, you mean Team Ninja, those small timers, those chumps we collaborated with our God game?
I
Exactly.
have a
like
god
that.
game. It's called Ninja Gaiden Sigma Black. I think it was.
It's you said Sigma, so it can't be a God game. Sorry.
Yeah, no. You're a fake Ninja Gaiden fan, Chow. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You've exposed yourself.
I heard Sigma. It's like, well, opinion discarded.
No, I was thinking the OG Xbox version. I just forgot the
Okay,
name.
that's not
Sigma.
Sigma. That's not Sigma. That's not
Yeah.
Sigma.
Do you mean the OG Xbox version
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Ninja
the-
Gaiden Black?
The
Yeah.
Ninja Gaiden Black, the OG
Yeah.
one.
Sigma's the PS3 version.
Okay, I got mixed up because I haven't played it.
Is
in a long
the
time.
Sigma the baby version, the journalist
Yes.
version?
It's like when they nerfed everything, and it doesn't have like the original. What is it? Itakaki working on it, and I think he just owned that. It's not part of his.
It just feels very weird, and also like the additions to it like kind of feel watered down. The Ninja Gaiden Black was very pure, I guess is the best way to
It's a
describe
very
it.
difficult game as well.
Yeah. Yes.
This is a combination of a release date announcement plus a fairly decent look at some gameplay for the upcoming Sandland. This is the Bandai Namco joint with the based on the Toriyama manga, and the release date for Sandland is coming on April 26th. Alongside the announcement of the release date, we got a trailer, and the trailer shows a fair bit of gameplay, almost entirely like the vehicular movement and combat. And it actually looks pretty neat. Like lots of it just both like fidelity, lots of moving parts, lots of particle effects. Just the speed of the mech seems pretty interesting. It shows a very small section of like on foot gameplay, but mostly vehicle gameplay. And I don't know, it just looks like a fun time. I don't know anything about Sandland, so I have no idea like what I'm looking at in context. But just looks like a fun time. And late April might actually be a decent release window for this.
Is it?
May
I don't know, what else
It's
is
the
in late
same
April?
week as Aiden and Saga.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. I thought Saga was early April.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about this is they also revealed the collector's edition, and there's a figure that comes with it. They didn't understand the assignment. Nobody wants the main character. They want the tank.
Yeah.
True, that is true. You're definitely right. No one cares about the fucking character standing on a rock. They want it. They want a fucking cool vehicle with it. I think that's kind of like gonna be the make it or break it of this game to me. To be like I think vehicular combat and variety is like I think the standout feature of this game. And I think
This
that
game
it
is
does
basically
go by
like
that.
anime Metal Max. If Metal Max
Yeah.
wasn't anime enough, or
Yeah. So hopefully it's cool. Like like they need. I forgot if they have a release date for that Sandland anime film, whatever.
Didn't they already show it at like Comic-Con?
Did
Like San
they?
Diego Comic-Con? I'm pretty sure they did.
I forgot if they got a home release yet. Maybe they already
Yeah.
showed it at an event, but not a home release yet. But yeah, so I don't know. It's hopefully I get around to this game. I don't know. If I don't, then I don't, man. You can't blame me. It's fucking Saga and Ayuden in the same week. So
Yeah. My order of operations is literally Saga, Ayuden, then maybe Sandland if there's something else that doesn't get announced for April that's going to take up my
unless people
time.
tell me it's like, oh no, Southlands is that. But we don't know. We don't know. I don't know. Hopefully this is good. I want it to be.
Fast forward like 8 months from now, we're all gonna be like, that Saga game
I'll
was
ha-
disappointing, but Sandland though.
That was fucking game of the year.
I'll have to consult with my good friend Kai, who has a Sandland avatar, so he will definitely be playing that game. So I should ask him, like in late April, is that game good?
That's right.
The last news announcement we have here is something that was announced a couple years ago, but we didn't cover it on our site, and there weren't any updates in the last year. It is a remaster for a DS game called WiZmans World. I don't know if that released in English, the DS version. The remaster is called WiZmans World Retry. It was announced by publisher City Connection back in 2022. It doesn't look like there were any major updates throughout all of 2023 until now, where City Connection has announced that it'll be releasing on console on May 30th for Japan, and then later in 2024 for both PC and Xbox. The PC version does mention that it will have English subtitles on the Steam page, so that's likely that when it comes to Xbox and PC, that'll be a worldwide release. But that's kind of putting two and two together. That's not been officially. It's all but confirmed, to put it that way. And then a trailer, just like in for Sandland, a trailer alongside the release date announcement was provided as well. So hopefully I tee that up pretty well, even though I don't know much about this game.
I don't know
The
anything
DS
about
original.
WizMan. I don't know about anything about Jellico or WizMan's World.
All right, I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna
WizMan.
look up. Did the DS game come out in English? I don't know.
How do you know anything about this?
I do not know anything. I do know Jellico make a bunch of like beat 'em up games for Super Nintendo.
Hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, maybe this might be like one of the very few like complete blank spots we have. It's just
Yeah, well, it looks like it's a DS game from 2010 that wasn't released in English, so I think we have a little bit of a leash there. So
no, people are gonna be very mad. You're like, what? You don't know about WizMan's World?
Bunch of normies.
Well, I'm glad Kite was able to, he had a health scare in the last couple of months, and he's kind of back on the mend and was able to cover this for us. So I'm glad Kite was looking out for stuff like this, because this is stuff that would fall into the radar otherwise. So we'll shout him out here while we have the chance.
I'm gonna send something in voice chat. Have you ever seen this awesome NES game cover?
Okay, so it's the Chow on Discord, because it's an audio podcast, Chow. It's a Super Nintendo cover, and the title is "Hey Punk, Are You Tough Enough?"
Is that the title?
Mastered. Yeah, is this a real game, Chow?
It is a real game.
It's from Jalico. Mastered the moves to
Master me.
to master me. I'm like, what the fuck?
Who names a game like this? Hey Punk, are you tough enough?
Okay, I guess that's a real game that came out on Super Nintendo. If there's any diehard Jalico fans listening, let us know about your experience playing Jalico games.
Why does it look like they traced over some concept art of Blanca?
You're not wrong. Yeah, people would have to find the cover for this game. Yeah.
And I guess in Japan, this game is called Dead Dance, and then in US, it was called Tough Enough, spelled tough, TUFF enough. Anyways, thank you, Chow, for this tangent. WiZmans World Remaster is coming out in May in Japan for consoles. There you go. And that covers us for this podcast. So we did it.
Did it?
Let's see. Obviously, we'll look forward to some other January releases later in the month. Obviously, the big one being Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Looks like not next week, but the week after. That game will be out and released. So we'll look forward to that. What else is in I know we have a lot slated for early February.
Well,
What else is in
what's upcoming
January?
this week? Like this upcoming week, is there any new releases
Yeah,
coming?
I'm
this
pull-
week?
I'm
Prince of
pulling,
Persia: The Lost Crown. I will be playing that.
Good one. I was pulling up Adam's list. Legend of Grimrock on Switch. Hell yeah.
There you go.
So, Neptunia Sisters versus Sisters on Switch. Hell yeah.
Where's that Gothic 2?
That came out already.
Come on, Chow. Are you gonna play that?
No.
You mentioned it. What the fuck? Just like how Brian's gonna mention Neptunia Sisters versus Sisters because he mentioned it.
He's gonna be our diehard Idea Factory expert.
Someone has to be this
I am.
year. Okay.
You are now.
Publicly stated.
That was a question mark. Well, so a little bit of a quieter week, but we'll see what we get up to in the next 7 days and make it a surprise.
Oh
Well,
wait,
thank you also. Wait.
did we mention
Hold on.
another code is also coming out next week?
Oh no,
Oh yeah,
Another code
another code
question,
for Switch. That's right.
it wasn't on the RPG list, so I didn't see it.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not an RPG, so that's why.
Yeah, I know. No, but no. Glad you're looking out. Well, thank you all so much for listening. You can read about everything we talked about on this podcast up on our website at rpgsite.net. You can find us on all of the social media platforms. Just search for RPG Site on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and you should be able to find us. If you haven't already, we've gotten a little bit of feedback in our Discord. First of all, you should join our Discord, discord.gg/rpgsite. We had our previous regular episode of the podcast last week. Before then, we do have a big 8-hour Game of the Year cast. So if you have got time to kill and you want to listen to us blather on about our favorite games from last year, we do have that up on our website as well as on Spotify and Google Podcasts as well. Just search for Game of the Year Cast 2023. And we'll be back next week with another regular episode of the Tetracast. So as always, thank you so much for supporting us and listening to this podcast. Until next time, stay safe and take care. We'll talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Later, folks.